Hello, and welcome to this science fiction and fantasy marketing podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Joe Lalo, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Lindsay Broker. I've taken over the hosting duties because Lindsay's nursing her voice a little bit, so bear with me if I stutter and sound like an idiot. That's just what happens when I have to talk. So this week we don't have a guest, but we are going to be talking about, as we mentioned in the intro, we'll be talking about our author platforms. But let's start off with some news and updates. And I guess technically that means I have to ask everyone else what they're doing before I answer, because that's the structure we do when Lindsay talks. So
good job.
Lindsay, we'll do you first.
All right. Awesome. Yes, bear with me, please. Going on 2 weeks of having this nasty cough. We've decided I probably have tuberculosis or something, and I'll probably be dead next week. But in the meantime, I am going to impart any wisdom I can. But news first. All right. For me, I'd actually like to announce that my Fallen Empire science fiction series has been taken on to do Kindle Worlds. And so I'm pretty excited about that. That's basically, we had a guest on before that was talking about that a bit, so you may remember. But other people get to basically write fan fiction in my world, and they get to get paid for it because Amazon sets the structure, but it's about 35% instead of the 70% you would make for if you wrote your own novel. But the perk is you're writing it in a universe that's done pretty well with sales, and I'm going to keep writing a couple more series in this world. So and the reason I'm mentioning all this is because I'm supposed to recruit some people that are willing to write in the in my universe so that we have something when it launches, and that'll be in April of 2017. So if that sounds at all fun to you, if you've read any of the books, or if you'd be interested in reading in the books, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to give you some I'll make a sheet with the guidelines, and I'm working on a story Bible and everything so that anybody that wants to do this will have plenty of information. You'd probably have to read a couple of the books, but then you could just go off and do your own thing in the universe, make your own characters or whatever. If you actually wanted to use the characters that I've created, you could totally do that too, in which case you may want to read the whole series. But I'm happy to give you the books if you're interested. So you can email me at barokerl@comcast.net, or just go to my site, lindsaybaroker.com, and use the contact button and send me a note. And yeah, I'll tell you all about it. That's my news. Passing you to Jeff.
All right. So just wanted to say, Lindsay sounds like I did about 4 days ago. So if I start to cough, I will hit the mute. Just bear with me before I come back on here. Got my water bottle here. As for my news, I hope to be having 2 books coming out this particular month. I'm going to try and time my, this is mystery, science fiction. My mystery novel actually has the word mummy in it. Going to try and time that with Halloween, so we're going to see how well that works. I just got the final cover in with a brand new artist. I don't know else there. You can see that a little bit there. Brand new artist. I think he did a fantastic job with the griffins that I've got on the cover there. So quite happy with that. So that should be, knock on wood, be released by the end of this particular month. NaNoWriMo has sent me all kinds of reminders saying I need to sign up for the next one, which I'm going to. So that'll be fun. See if I can pump out another book in that short of a time frame. But yeah, that's it. I've got my 2 books I've been working on. They should, knocking on wood here, should be done by the end of this particular month and released wherever I'm going to release them at. So that's me.
Cool. That's excellent. As for my news, I just got back from New York Comic Con. I was a pro there, but I was not like presenting or doing any panels. I was just enjoying it. As for my actual useful book news, I just finished up the bonus material for my sci-fi anthology. I've said in other things that I like to do some extra shorts for when I do an anthology. So I did 3. I did basically about 75,000 words of new material for it, and then that's gone off to the editor. I also am finishing up the rough draft, like probably tomorrow or the day after. I'll finish up the rough draft of the second of 2 books that aren't in any of my pre-existing series that will be going out at some point in the near future. These are this has been the year of clearing out the pipeline, and I had a lot of books that were just sort of abandoned series, and now they're both going to eventually be released because I don't waste anything. I use every crumb. Also, I was talking to my audiobook publisher just this morning. They they requested permission to continue the series, my sci-fi series, Big Sigma. They just released the first one, and they're already under contract to do the next two. And I guess the first one's doing well enough that they wanted the fourth one. So I'm happy to say that. What else do I have here? The German translation of The Great Convergence, which is Die große Zusammenkunft, is doing very well in Germany right now. In fact, for at least a little while today, I had 2 books in the top 10 epic fantasy in Germany on Amazon. So that was super cool. I also, by the way, found out that in order to do that, you only need to be selling like 24 books a day. So the ranks are way easier on Germany, but still makes me proud. And that's about. I guess I could also show this off. I can show my blurry. I've been experimenting with weird types of merch. So I made this little metal dragon head for those of you watching the video, and let's see if I can get it to be in focus. And I can't. So you can just imagine what it looks like. I'll share a photo of it later.
This is how we tease people and get them to come watch the YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah,
now that they're dying of curiosity.
You can see blurry dragon heads and also stickers. Yeah, but those
what
are
a treat.
Yeah. So that's our news. I guess next we're going to move up to reader questions. Our first question is from Jennifer. What tools, apps, spreadsheets, or other are you using to track your book sales and marketing campaigns? So we'll start with Jeff, since Jeff's not coughing at the moment.
I've actually got an Excel spreadsheet that I use to update it. I've actually got it linked on my iPad to my actual desktop as well. So since I'm not always sitting in front of my desktop, I'll go in there. I like to check it, not necessarily every single night, but usually like once a week I'll go in there. I'll update numbers and figures and that sort of thing. So for me, it's just a simple Excel spreadsheet. I know enough about Excel where I could say, add up these columns and turn it into this row, take this number is going to be this, add it into here. So I've turned it into all kinds of little formula and whatnot in different cells. So, but yeah, that's what I use. Made it myself.
All right, I am done coughing for the moment, and what I use is a very fancy thing called Notes. It's it's an app on the toolbar of my computer, and I only started doing that about a year ago. I usually just kind of ran promos, and I'd kind of take notes that month, but I wouldn't necessarily save them. But I basically decided to start keeping track of where I run the promo, how much it costs, and how many books were actually sold or downloaded to the nearest, guesstimating, of course, because there's really no way to know when you're running this stuff on other sites. You can't use your affiliate links or anything to figure that out. But so I've started I keep one for each book, and I've also got the blurb and everything kind of about the book. Like a lot of times when you do the box sets and stuff, you'll be asked for like a 1-sentence summary, and after having been asked for that for the same book 4 or 5 times, I realized maybe I should put that somewhere where I could actually find it again. So there it is. Notes, guys. It's super high tech.
Yeah, well, whatever works. In my case, I have a couple of things I do. I don't keep as close a tabs on this stuff as I used to. I used to be obsessive about it back when I was in IT. It was just sort of where my brain was. But most of my information is kept in Google Sheets or Google Docs spreadsheets or whatever the heck it's being called now. They change their name frequently. And I usually that's done either by pasting it out of Excel into Sheets or just going straight into the sheet. But I also wrote a Python script for converting the Smashwords, Amazon, and Google Play data into a database so I could run queries on it. I do that like twice a year, basically just to have an annual idea of how I've been doing. But it's handy because then you can figure out, well, how many books did I sell overseas of this sort? And you can, if you know SQL, then you can type in a query and get it. I don't do a lot of direct marketing, so I don't usually have much in terms of statistics on how well they're doing. If there is something I'm trying for the first time and I want to see how well it does, I'll use a link shortener. Most of the link shorteners I've used, Google's got a link shortener, so I use that a lot. We'll keep track of how many click-throughs there were, so that'll give me an idea of at least the engagement of the link that was used in the promo. And in terms of overall performance, just to see how well I'm doing at a moment's notice, I usually just use the Amazon.com earnings as like a forecast. I know how much I make proportionally to Amazon, to everything else. So I look at Amazon.com on the reporting page, and then if that's on its way down, then I start looking about promos, and if that's on its way up, then I do okay. But yeah, that's where we are with that. So the next question is, what should be expected? What should the expected cost? Let's try this again. What should be the expected cost of an editor? Do you use an editor for short stories as well? So
let's see. When you get the bill from the editor and you think, "Oh my FG," then you know you're paying a appropriate amount there. Most editors will charge a very like certain amount of money per page on the actual book there. I've had them range anywhere from $100 up to $500-600 there. So it's just a matter of how much you can actually afford, and the type of editing services that they're actually providing. If they're providing just a basic, copy guard or copywriting type of thing there, then it can be cheaper. But if they're trying to help you write the thing, saying, okay, you don't want to use this word here because it clashes with this over here, or you use many of it. All depends on what exactly you're paying for there. I would say hire the best editor your money can afford.
All right. I think my editor's probably kind of on the high end for what indie authors are usually looking for, to be quite honest, but she's gotten quite popular and she's always booked solid. She does a good job. So, and I pay about 1,000 for 100,000 words, whatever that equates to. And yeah, I think she does a good job. That's copy editing. She's not doing developmental editing for me. I usually say if you need that, you probably can't afford to be an indie author. Join a critique group. I'm serious. It's thousands of dollars usually for somebody that knows like what they're doing and has experience in the genre. A lot of people that hang their shingle out for that have been editors at some of the publishing houses. And it's not that it's a bad idea if you can afford it, but for a lot of us, it's going to be more feasible to join a critique group and kind of run your first manuscript past other writers that way and basically get the major flaws and problems out before you go and pay someone to edit. And then you only have to pay for the copy editing. And even that with somebody that's a professional and does a good job, I always have typos that slip through, missing words and things like that. So I've now started these last couple of years, I've kind of got a typo brigade. I send people out the manuscripts early and they usually come back to me in about a week. And it's actually been great. There's a couple gals that they have amazing eyes. They should be professional editors. I can't believe how much they catch, because it's funny because other people will send back like, oh, I didn't see any typos. I only saw one. And then, I get this 2-page list from another gal. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And when you can get that before you publish the manuscript. And what was the second question? Okay. Do you use an editor for short stories as well? I do. I want to always put as good of a product out there as I can. So because a lot of editors pay by the word, obviously a short story is going to be cheaper. So it's usually not that big of a financial burden. I will say for you epic fantasy authors out there, I've done the 220,000 word novel, and that was a big check to write to my editor. I now write shorter stuff.
Yeah, you forgot to mention that. Yes, for short stories, you want those edited too. So, yeah, when you have a group of people that constantly saying, "Okay, dude, you got a typo on this page, got a typo on that page," that has proven to me that I can't just write something and automatically release it. I need it checked by somebody. So, that's just me.
Yeah, I can basically the same experience as Jeff and Lindsay. I have 2 editors because for a while I was writing a little bit faster than either one of my editors could do solo. So I have like a main editor and a secondary editor that I use for different things, and it breaks down on one of them breaks down on a per word cost. And like Lindsay, it's about $1,000 for 100,000 words. And because I write stuff that's an average between 100 and 200,000 words, it usually costs me between $1,000 and $2,000 per book. I budget $2,500 for editing, and then whatever I don't use on the edit, I do additional advertising with. I also have an editor who does an hourly rate, but it usually breaks down to about the same per length. So I don't think that you can really. An hourly rate technically can be cheaper sometimes if you have a really fast editor, but generally speaking, I feel they calibrate their rate so that it's about where the professional rate is. And I do also use editors for my short stuff. I don't normally do a lot of short stuff, but when I do it in clusters. Like I said at the top of the podcast, I did 75,000 words worth of short stuff, and therefore it costs whatever $750 to get that edited, and that's where we are with that. I make sure everything's edited, even if there's something that even if there's something that I'm being told will be edited. Like I've done submissions for anthologies, and they have said, well, don't worry about editing, we have an editor, it's going to be edited before it gets in the book. I usually have it edited anyway, just to put my best foot forward, and also to sort of make it easier on the organizers. So yeah, always editing is best. And that's it that we have for the questions right now. So we're going to move on to the meat of the conversation, which is your author platform. And the first section we're going to be talking about is Facebook. And the first question in Facebook is Facebook page or a Facebook group for connecting with fans?
I've actually got one of each. I've got my normal Facebook page where I can interact with the fans. I say, hello, hey, how you guys doing? And because I get a lot of people that write up and say, I really like your books. Just want to let you know I passed them on to my family and friends. I'm like, great, I'm glad to hear it. And then following our own advice that we got from a bunch of people here on the show, I actually like 3-4 months ago, I created a secret group on Facebook just for the people, the family and friends, mostly readers actually, that say like, what, if you ever need help, and we want help with beta reading or spotting this or spotting that, I'm really great. I had an English degree. I'm like, okay, I hear the word English, I hear the word degree. Congratulations, you're a member of my posse, and I'll send them an invite. So I've got about 20-25 people over there right now, just chomping at the bit, ready for me to release the book to them. So, but yeah, so I use both ways.
All right, for myself, I've made the author page about 5 years ago when I finally got on Facebook, and that's kind of what I've stuck with. I have heard of authors using a Facebook group for everyone, and just join my group, accept, and I don't think I think it's okay, but I don't think you can advertise to your group the way you can to a Facebook page. So if I want to do a boosted post, which I'd pretty much do that every time I have a new release. In general, I don't think the boosted posts are great, but for something like that, I'll use it. And what that does is lets you advertise to all the people who have already liked your page but may have forgotten about you, or they haven't interacted with your page for a long time, so they haven't been getting updates. So that's something I like to do. And Facebook groups, I've noticed the same thing. They kind of fall off if people don't interact with them for a while. They stop seeing the updates. A lot of people are in like hundreds of groups, so that's perfectly understandable. I get why Facebook does it, but I don't know. I just find the page kind of like it's more separate, this is my business face that I'm putting out there, and I keep my personal Facebook account kind of separate, and nobody wants to see my updates to the personal stuff. The readers don't, I don't think. But so, and I found that, I know some people don't like the page. They think it's too business-like, too official, not friendly enough. I don't know, but I get quite a few people commenting on things and sharing things. So I think it can definitely be effective. And like I said, I think somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can advertise and target the people in your groups.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I have a Facebook fan page. My opinion on pages versus groups is pages for connecting to large groups of people, and groups for collaborating with groups of people. So if you're just trying to talk about your books to your fans, then the fan page is the way to do it as far as I'm concerned, and you can boost your stuff and all that. If you have a thing like I have a beta readers group, and that is a group because I want to see who has seen it. I want to share files. So that's where I stand on that subject. All right, so what do you post about on Facebook is the next question. So whoever wants to answer that one first.
Well, posting on Facebook. I learned when I first started on Facebook that you don't want to push your book every single post like I've seen a lot of people do, because that usually will irritate a whole lot of people there. So usually I'll post about just, I don't really do too personal stuff. I'll, like, for instance, if I watch a movie and I think it sucks, I will, and then who saw this movie and thinks it absolutely sucks, and just try and strike up a conversation like if we were hanging out at a hanging out at a bar or like a restaurant or something, just chatting with the readers there. And I've got quite a lot of good responses out of that, where they're just like, oh yeah, well, man, I can't believe you didn't like that movie. I thought it was great. And other they'll go, oh my god, that really did suck, and did you see this? And I usually do that maybe once every couple of days or so, just to keep people talking, keep coming back to the page, and I'll say, yeah, or I've started a new contest on my blog. Go take a look if you want to join in, that sort of thing. But stuff like that.
Yes, and I will do the Facebook page. I will usually do book-related stuff. I tend to write little snippets if I think they're funny, of dialogue of the work in progress, to kind of keep people interested between launches, releases, and want to see what's going on in the next book. And I'll post if I have a sale running or something like that. I should say I started my Facebook page probably about 8 months after I published my first novel. This was back in 2011. I think it's going to be tough to get likes and likes, I guess is what you want on Facebook, before you've published your first novel. It's funny because you'll see like agents and people and publishers that they want you to have a platform before you have your first novel out, and that's pretty tough, unless maybe you're publishing some short stories and things like that. You can give it a try. You can just try to be interesting and post, like if you're doing fantasy, say, maybe you do posts like I was at Comic-Con this weekend, and take some pictures and share the pictures and ask questions. Anytime, the more, you've probably heard this before, I think we've talked about it, but the more people interact with your posts, the more they tend to get spread to other people, not just through shares, but it seems like the posts that have a lot of interaction just naturally get more attention from, or get showed more to your followers, people who liked you. So that's what I'll share. I'm not big on like dog pictures and things, cat pictures. I don't have any cats, but some people do that, and it is a way to get interaction, because who doesn't love cats and dogs? And I tend to keep mine pretty much just related to the books. Sometimes if I see like a good story on IO9 or Wired or something that kind of relates to science fiction or fantasy, I'll post it. I think they were talking about SpaceX or whatever going to Mars and settling it a couple weeks ago, and I posted the story and said, like, who's going? Who would take this opportunity? And that was kind of fun. That resulted in a pretty big discussion. So I think if you are going to post news and things like that, if you can kind of loop it into your books, you're going to be more likely to attract the people who could become your readers if they're not already your readers.
Yeah, I can definitely say that the more interactions that there are, whatever, the more engagement that you have with posts, the more they're going to show. Like, you'd only get shown to a handful of your people, and then if they start interacting, then it gets shown to more of your people. So even if it's not a share, it's going to just, whatever, comments and likes. Comments are super powerful for that. It's going to really expand and increase its impact. So what I tend to post on Facebook as a result, I'll do the standard updates like book releases, or when I'm going to be making a rare public appearance. Or if I always try to make sure there's interesting media stuff, because if I have a polished bronze dragon head I want to show off, or these brand new stickers, I'll always like media. A post with a picture is better than a post that's just text. So I like to do that. Videos are even better, but only if they're short. So I often will do just solo question and answer videos. And what the common practice to do is to do like a 15-second edit of it to put on Facebook that then links across to the YouTube. But I just put both up on the full length up on YouTube and on Facebook. Links is when it's an actual link. Like if it's something that requires a link, unless I'm going to be boosting the post, I try not to put links, because Facebook sort of chases links. Like they stomp links down.
Question for you. Have you ever on Facebook ventured into talking about something about political in nature, especially
No.
at this time of the year? I've had people try and get a response out of me, and the only response I'll say is like, I saw it on Facebook Best, the best post ever, where it said, of all the hundreds of millions of people out there, how do we end up with a certain couple of people on the ballot? I'm like, I couldn't agree more. That's all I'm going to say about it. I have no public opinion about it yet at all.
Yeah, I agree. Like if when you're talking about like your author, like you the author, and you sort of have to separate you the author and you the person. When
Mm-hmm.
you're interacting with people who are interested in your books, guide toward the interest in the books. And if you start doing stuff that's going to divide your audience in any way, that's usually a terrible idea. Politics, like really, yeah, anything that might make the room uncomfortable, I try to avoid. So yeah, I certainly don't post
That's a
about
good word. Uncomfortable. I mean,
uncomfortable.
you can feel the ice forming or the
Yeah,
thundercloud forming over the person's head. I'm like, yeah, I plead the fifth on this one. I am not going to say a freaking thing about
yeah,
this. So, not unless I get off Facebook and I'm talking to somebody on the phone. Then I'll let them have it. But yeah,
yeah. Discussions are good. Arguments are bad.
yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah, I also avoid the political stuff, even though people have tried to draw me in on Twitter. Like last week, I think I made a post about I feel like chocolate covered espresso beans should be a tax write-off for authors because they are fuel I need to write my book. So, of course I was joking. And I got like 3 people that were like, you better talk to Trump about that, or you better, what does Trump have to say about that? I'm just like, really? I'm talking about chocolate and you're bringing in politics?
right. So
But yeah, I tried to stay away because I've seen a very popular, traditionally published author ranting about politics on Twitter. Somebody that does like secondary world fantasy. So you're just like, I mean, I can kind of get it if you're writing nonfiction or you're writing something where politics is a big part of the story and is part of your brand. But no, it really turned me off, and I'm just kind of like, ugh, I don't know if I was kind of tired of the series anyway. But
yeah.
I think, and some people, if they're really, I'm not even that passionate about it, but if some people are really passionate, that could definitely turn them off from your books. They're just like, oh no, you're one of those people.
Yeah, the
Not
last thing you want to do is leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth, especially about your own books.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when I was at New York Comic Con, they had a little separate section. It was in a different building that was it was called BookCon at NYCC, and it was all author panels there. And I went to one of them, and one of the people said that she writes her books to get away from the world of politics because she finds it frustrating. And then when she's finished writing her books, they are invariably about politics, just made up politics that she formed. It's kind of funny how like sometimes your head just stays in that space no matter where you run.
Clearly, she's not happy about politics if she wants to write about politics there. So,
Yeah. All right. So next question is, how can you use Facebook for networking with other authors?
well, if you create like a box set or something or other, and you have, if you want to keep in touch with every other, author attributed to that particular box set, you can create like just a group for them, or you can say, hey, we're getting ready to, really, I'm getting ready to push this to my, X amount of number on my mailing list. This is going to be from this time to this time. Then maybe the next author could pick it up once that one dies off and just keep the thing. I mean, just a way to, keep in touch if you're working all on a special project together, something like that.
sorry.
I'll pick up for now if you like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I find this is a situation, like I said earlier, Facebook groups, or when you're trying to network with authors. I've gotten into some promotional groups, mixed success. It depends on who's running them and what the type of promotion is. I've also got collaboration groups on things like bundles, and also sort of like sometimes themed promos. Like I was invited into a group about translations because I recently had a book translated. So like that's usually the way I network with authors on Facebook. I also I'm friends with a couple of authors on Facebook, and I'll comment on their posts, but that's less networking with authors and more just, having a friend on Facebook. So anything you would do with a person, just a regular friend, that works with authors too, because we're also people.
All right. Yes. Thank goodness for the mute button. I love how it asks me when I'm coughing if I want to unmute because people can't hear that. Yeah. I don't want to deprive you guys or anything, but no, I will do the same thing. Box sets, it's a good way to collaborate. Also, sometimes you'll get invited to a group that just happens to be other fantasy authors, and I think that's a good idea to accept if, you know some of the people and or you've heard of them and you want to be associated with them. Because sometimes when you're in these groups, you will get asked preferentially. Maybe they'll ask the group first before they go wide, saying, hey, I'm putting together a box set, or we're doing a promo for science fiction space opera. Do you guys want to be a part of it? So, and if you're not invited, start your own group, because that's how it all starts, and just kind of then you can cherry pick who you want to invite in your group. And, that way it's just a way, I don't think these take a lot of time. It's something like you check your phone, your Facebook app when you're in line at the grocery store, and maybe make a comment to somebody's post in the group. And you never know when just kind of having these really little relationships, you're not best friends or anything, but it may result in an opportunity for you. So I definitely think if you, like I said, if you get invited, think about joining. And if you want to start one, go for it. One thing I forgot to say on the Facebook pages is, I see people ask, how do I get likes? Especially when you're first starting out, maybe you only got one book out and you have 3 likes and they're all relatives. Kind of like with reviews, a lot of it is a result of just the more books you sell, the more people who become aware, they're going to come check out your Facebook page. But you can help yourself by linking to your page. I almost always do that at the back of books. I'm like, here's my website, here's my Facebook page, and here's my Twitter page. And you will be surprised that some people who would never sign up for your newsletter, because they do not sign up for newsletters, will come give you a like on Facebook. And then through either naturally or the boosted posts later, you're able to touch bases with that person again, at least let them know you have a new book out. Same with Twitter. Sometimes you get people on Twitter who are not on any of the other things. And there's other sites out there too. These are kind of the ones we picked to talk about tonight, because most of us, I know Jeff's not on Twitter, but Joe and I are both on Facebook and Twitter and have been for a while. And, we've had authors do Instagram and some of the other ones, but I feel like these are still pretty major ones, especially Facebook. Like if you're only going to pick one to be on, you should probably be on Facebook. All right, I'm done blabbing on that 3 questions ago question.
No, it's important to be complete. So the next question here is, leading on from what you said, when does it make sense to do a boosted post?
I'd go off of what Lindsay said earlier, is when you're ready to release a book, do a boosted post. You can actually reach more people, and especially those that typically have already either read your stuff or have liked your page, and go from there. So that's when I do it.
Yeah, I'll mostly do it with new releases or a sale, or if I'm in a couple box sets this month that are 99 cents and it's like 10 books by 10 authors. And I figure that's a great deal, so I might as well let people know about it. And unlike with a lot of the other promo sites that other people own, you can use your affiliate link on your Facebook page, so you can get an idea of how much. I say I spent $40 on this boosted post. You can go in and say, okay, good, I made $30 or $40 on the affiliate revenue, both from the book sales and whatever other people buy while they're there. So that's usually when I do it. I've seen people do it just for news. It's up to you. As your page gets bigger, it will cost more and more to boost the post. So I kind of pick and choose. Now I think I'm to the point where if I don't want to reach everyone, they're going to charge me more than $100. So.
Yeah, likewise. I do I these days almost only post for a new release. Maybe it's a new release of an actual book I've written. Maybe it's a new release of a bundle that I am in. But generally speaking, I only do a boosted post for something that I am selling for money. Sometimes, if I absolutely must share a thing on Facebook that has a link in it that I really, really need people to click, I'll boost that too, because as previously said, Facebook kind of squashes posts that have links in them because they lead you away from Facebook, which is the opposite of what Facebook wants. But that's it for that question. We have one more, and that is, have you had any success with Facebook ads?
I've actually created or used a couple of Facebook ads that I know I've broken even on them and made a little bit on each one of them, but the jury is still out on whether or not it's worth it to me to do it again. So I mean, if I notice if the sales really start dipping, I might dip my toe back in it. But right now I'm just like, I don't know if it's really worth it or not. So I'd have to hear from a bunch of people that have had really good luck with it before I'd probably be willing to do it again. At least not for a while, anyways.
Yeah, I keep trying it. I keep wanting to be a big fan of it. I've managed to break even with a box set because you're selling it for more, so you can afford to spend a little more on the advertising. I've also used it for a new release, especially in a book one, where I'm hoping, that I'll get enough sales over that first week that maybe it has a chance to stick on Amazon for a while. In that case, I'm willing to spend more than I make. For most of the time, I tend to kind of watch pretty carefully and try not to spend more than I'm making. Right now is kind of an exception. I have an ad going for my book one in my Fallen Empire series, and book's only 99 cents, so it's a foregone conclusion that I'm losing money. But because there are currently 5 more books for people to buy at full price and 2 more books coming out soon after that to complete the series, I figure maybe it's worth it. And at this point too, it's still in the top 100 or top 40 or something in its categories. So I figure the extra, like I said, I watch with the affiliate links and see that I am making sales each day from running the ads. They're just not breaking even. And I have found too that I actually found it easier with fantasy, kind of like secondary world fantasy, to break even like on a box set or something than science fiction. And I don't know if that's just my experience. I feel like I might have heard that once before with somebody else, that sci-fi was a little harder to do well with the Facebook ads. And I kind of wonder just if it's a real tech savvy crowd in general that reads science fiction, and they're like, yeah, ads. I have ad blockers, I'm not going to use that. I've heard of people in romance doing quite well, and maybe there's something to that too, where some of those people are tech savvy, but some of them are more just not really as big as the computer people. They're going to have ad blockers and just be totally blind to that stuff. So you never know. But I think it's worth trying, especially if you're trying to accomplish a specific thing, like you are releasing a new book and you're just hoping that you can get things rolling at Amazon enough to get the algorithms to maybe like you and help you stick at a place where the books continue to sell once you turn off the ads. But yeah, you got to be really careful. Watch how much you're spending each day and tweak. And the people that that really do well with this, like Mark Dawson, we've had him on the show before, those guys are in there every day looking at their ads, making sure, because if you just let them roll, they seem to eventually the price per click will go up, or there won't be as much engagement. So I don't think you need to do them to be a successful author and sell books. It's something you can do maybe once you're making some money or you can afford to invest some money. So those are my thoughts on Facebook ads.
Yeah, I've not done a Facebook ad, but I've been doing some research into it. I might give it a try. I've reached a point where, book sales go up and down over the course of the year, and depending on how long ago your most recent release was. So whenever it gets to around this time of year, which is when it starts to tick back up into the holidays, I start getting nervous at its current level. I start thinking about sort of maintenance ads, and Facebook is sort of on the top of the list for that. But you really need to train yourself up. So until I really know what I'm doing, I'm probably not going to dip into Facebook ads. That'll be an early next year thing for me, I think. But now we've spoken about Facebook, it's time to talk about Twitter, which I suspect Jeff's not going to have an awful lot to say. But
I could have written this first question, so I am going to listen with eager anticipation to you two about this.
Okay, the first question in Twitter is, what's the point of Twitter? So,
exactly.
Do I get to answer this? Twitter was the first platform I actually got on, and I did it to stalk agents back in 2009, I think it was, before I really knew about self-publishing. And I think you can avoid it if you see, it sounds awful. I like it just because it does require such short responses. I don't like anything that's a time sink. I'm really careful with Facebook not to, I make my own author posts 3-4 times a week, and that doesn't take any time at all. But boy, can you get sucked into arguments and things if you're just reading your feed and you're like reading this epic story of what's happening in someone's life, and you're like, I'm not even sure I know which person that is. I think they friended me 3 years ago for some reason. And anyway, y'all know how it is. The point of Twitter, though, I feel it's kind of a place where I would say I actually have gotten book sales from Twitter. I'll kind of do the same thing. If I have a quote from what I'm writing that day, I'll put it in there. I've seen people actually go through their finished manuscript and pick out a lot of the little quotes that they like cute bits of dialogue and things, put that in there with a link to the book. And it's another place where you can kind of form relationships with other authors that may lead to opportunities. It's right now they have an opportunity, they have a thing where you can pin a post. So like on my Twitter page, my profile page, I've always got, buy the first book in the Fallen Empire series for only 99 cents. And I think I link to the free first chapter I have up on my site. So if you're running a sale, you can always have one post on the top of your Twitter page that people will see when they click on your profile. I don't know, what's the point? A lot of these, Facebook, Twitter, all the other sites, you're usually not going to have any mega sales from them unless you're spending a bunch of money on Facebook ads. It's the kind of thing where when you're not really selling any books, it can make a difference because it might result in a couple sales a day. If you tweet something, people don't necessarily want to spend money when they're on Twitter. I think it's a good place you can tweet about your perma-free books or something you're running a sale on that's for free. Or like I said, if you have a first chapter up on your site. And like Facebook, people can share those posts, those tweets. And I will see that sometimes, a cute piece of dialogue or something, I'll have 10 people share it that I don't even know who they are. They're just readers, I assume, or bots, whatever gets a thing, whatever works. And then you have the opportunity of somebody else you have no connection with seeing a quote from your book or whatever you shared and thinking, that's interesting. Maybe I'll check that person out and at least follow them. And it's one more place where you can announce new book releases and things like that. So a lot of people are on there. A lot of agents are on there. If that's still something, I know we kind of talk to mostly the self-publishing crowd here, but I know a lot of people still have that dream of maybe one day I will. We just had Annie on last week and she got that great deal and kept her ebook rights and sold print rights. So, those are people you can follow on there, and you can follow other authors. And, I guess that's all I have to say about Twitter. But if you hate it, don't do it. Don't make yourself do it. But if you kind of get it and it seems kind of fun, I personally like it a lot more than Facebook. So there you go.
Yeah, Twitter for me, the point of Twitter is quick, immediate, and formal communication. Like if something I want to say or something I want to know falls into the area of it needs to be quick, it needs to be timely, and it needs to be informal, then that's what Twitter is my go-to for it. So like I said, I was at the convention. I used Twitter to schedule a meetup. And I did it last year. It was reasonably successful. This year, less so, because this year was a little bit weird getting tickets for NYCC. But that's useful, like early in the day, say you tweet, hey, I'm going to be at such and such a place. Maybe you take a picture of the place, because you can share all sorts of media on Twitter, so it's handy for that. It's also good for images. So, and also for me, Twitter is the place that gives me the most, I get the most interaction with my fans on Twitter. Almost every tweet I have that's not just idle musing usually has one or two people respond back, and I can get a lot of really good feedback on Twitter. But it's just like where I am the most me. Like the other places are largely just about the books, but Twitter is the closest I come to sharing sort of my public profile, so to speak. So I find that the more engaged with you as a person your fans are, the more likely they are to sort of be a loyal fan. So if you have things that you think your friends would be interested in that are, again, same rules apply as we talk about with Facebook. Don't do anything that's going to start arguments. But it's a place that people can sort of be in contact with you, and it's limited enough by its length that you can't really get too deep. And therefore, it's good for informal communication. So we sort of went through the other two questions while we're doing this, but I'll skim through them real quick anyway. Can Twitter actually sell books for you?
I think it can. I've used my affiliate links and done stuff on there. I tried Twitter advertising once, and it did pretty much nothing. I was getting charged for people who would usually click the thing anyway to click. So I wouldn't recommend that necessarily, but like having the pinned post with a link to something free or a sample of your own, and then just kind of going out and interacting and saying things. And I'm kind of the same way as Joe. Like I'll think about it before I post something on Facebook. Like I'm like, this is a carefully cultivated snippet that's maybe a little longer. I'll just throw stuff up on Facebook. I'll share typos and things like that are like humorous, typos, and people seem to get a kick out of that. It is a place where you can be really human. And some, like Joe was saying, some readers will enjoy that, and it's a way to, again, keep your name alive and in their mind in between book releases so they don't forget about you if you're always showing up in their Twitter feed. And unlike authors, readers won't, sometimes they do, but they're not necessarily following 10,000 people. So they may actually see all of your tweets in their feed if they're only following 50 or 100 people. And so it is a way to keep in touch with them. And I do think you can sell books, but again, it's maybe a sale here, a sale there. It's probably not going to be a, oh my gosh, I'm on the Amazon top 100 thanks to my tweeting. So it's something to try if you're struggling to get sales. I would say, why not try it? And you're working on your next book. Always writing the next book is the best thing. But in the meantime, sometimes you need to mess around, and Twitter is there for you if you want to mess around.
Yeah, it's Twitter, like you talk about, you can get lost in Facebook. I almost never post personally on Facebook, but Twitter is the sort of thing where I'll find myself just sort of, it's on the phone, just scrolling with my thumb forever. But what can it sell books? For me, selling books is sort of an indirect thing with Twitter. Mostly the people who follow me, and thus the people who see the stuff I'm talking about on Twitter, already follow me because they already like my stuff. But they're also very good about retweeting, and now you're seeing all the people who follow them are seeing your stuff, and maybe it's only a handful of people, but they're friends with the person who likes your book, so they must have some similar interests, and it's got a word of mouth impact. I feel like it's got a better word of mouth impact than most of the other social networks, because as Lindsay said, Twitter, it seems like Twitter people tend to have a smaller list of people they follow. And now Twitter does the same thing that a lot of the other networks do, where it's a non-chronological timeline. They'll throw up in case you missed it or something like that, and pick out some of the hot stuff from their feed, which again is useful for you to have a reasonably interesting and engaging thing to say, because then you got a better chance of showing up on there. But yeah, I don't usually post like buy my book unless it's a new release.
Okay, so let me sum up here. What's the point of Twitter? Lindsay likes to cyberstalk people, and then you like it for the short communication. Got it. Okay, just checking.
We have sold Jeff on Twitter. He will be on tweeting constantly from now on.
Coughing coming out, coughing.
I will say, Joe, that's a good point about people sharing just kind of amongst their little group of friends. I've been surprised by how many times I've gotten like fan emails that are like, I got my friend and her friend, like my group of people are all reading your books now. So it's good not to, I tend to underestimate or not pay much attention to the things that don't give you hundreds of sales. But you cannot underestimate the word of mouth potential. And I agree, Twitter's probably a good place for that online.
Yep. And the last thing here, and this is basically going to be repeating ourselves a little bit, but what are some of the best practices for Twitter?
Jeff thinks you should stalk people, as I've taught him. Okay, really quick, I think be a content provider. You're an author, put your stuff out there. It's okay to retweet other people's stuff, and I think you tend to do that when you first get on Twitter because you're kind of trying to create relationships with other authors and other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when people go to your profile and they see that it's all retweets, they don't really know how to interact with you. So put your stuff from your books, or if you're not a funny writer, put your epic wise things that your characters have said, and just try to, or if you don't want to do that, then try to find some interesting news. I have a lot of writers that follow on mine, and I'll post some of the self-publishing news for them and kind of a mix of it, and then some more things for fans. And it is interesting. A lot of readers will actually be interested in what's going on in the self-publishing world. They kind of want to support you. It's really cool. And so if you're posting things like, oh, Amazon did this horrible thing, or they want to know about it. They're actually interested. So don't assume that you can't write about writing stuff, I would say, but do keep your audience in mind. And maybe the space news, if you're doing sci-fi, would be good stuff to share. And but yeah, I would just say try to be more of a content provider than just a echo chamber on there.
Yeah, I agree. This, like as we said earlier, you probably want to avoid being too political or anything that might make people uncomfortable. I like, liking other people's stuff is good. If you're not the kind of person who wants to reply, like if you're just not terribly social and someone tweets something to you, I find it useful to like it. It's basically just like, I saw it, because they still get that, like they're aware you definitely saw the thing, you hit like on it, but you don't have to start a conversation if you don't want to. So I think that's good. something a lot of people do that I think is a bad idea is basically robo posting, like having with great regularity a scheduled post just saying, hey, buy my book. I've seen people do like if this then that's. Oh, by the way, for any of this stuff, if you don't like using a social network but you do like using a different social network, think about using if this then that to cross post. It's kind of handy as long as you're mindful of what you're doing with it. Don't forget it's there and have it start posting personal stuff to an author account. But robo
Personal
posting
experience?
no, it hasn't happened to me.
Okay, just checking.
I only do if this then that for Pinterest because I realized I had no use for Pinterest, but I didn't want it to go stagnant. So it just reposts some images from other stuff I do.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, like me, are you talking about an app or something that's letting you auto post stuff, or what are you doing? What is if this then that?
If this then that is we'll call it a service. I think it's IFTTT.com, or maybe there's an extra T in there. This then that, 3 T's, IFTTT.com, I think. And yeah, you can sign up, and it's recipes, and it's if this. So if I post a picture on Tumblr, then that, and post that same picture on Pinterest, and it can do it for. I mean, it's exceptionally powerful. We're actually using it for this show now to post the show to the Facebook fan page because it's one less thing to have to remember, and it's very flexible and quick. We're not being paid to push if this then that, but if you don't know about it and you want to handle some, if you want to force magnify your social presence, if this then that is handy for that. Also, it's handy for automating stuff in your house, like the cabinet light I have here. I did an if this then that to make it let me know when bad things happen, but I turned it off because it was getting unsettling.
I will try to put a link to the service in the show notes. I think we're episode 102 here, so come on by the site, marketingsff.com, if you're curious about that for yourself.
Yep. And so robo posting, not always a great idea. The if this then that, the reason I brought it up, somebody was using it to post a reminder to buy his book every time it rained. It was like, oh, it's like it's a rainy day, maybe you should buy this book. And that can become profoundly annoying because unless you just want to use that post as a way to know if it's raining where he is. But other than that, just try to be personal. I think that's best. Try to be you without being confrontational, I think, is the best policy for Twitter.
Okay, so Twitter, if you're looking to cyberstalk somebody, and how would you find out what their Twitter handle is? Is there like a Twitter phone book somewhere that lists everything, or you have to even do more stalking and figure out what their handle is?
There's a search bar at the top of Twitter, and normally there's two things that identify you on Twitter. There's your actual name, and you can enter whatever you want there. And there's your Twitter handle. So if you type Joseph Lalo, and there's like 4 or 5 Joseph Lalos on Twitter, but it'll bring up the list of the Joseph Lalos. Or if you happen to know their Twitter handle, and it's a good policy to share your Twitter handle wherever you are sharing your other information, then you can I think it's twitter.com/ and the Twitter handle. It takes you straight to their feed.
Interesting.
You can just Google too. If you Google agent Jeffrey Lalo, you'll probably Twitter agent Jeffrey Lalo. I know Jeff's now thinking, what agents can I find on Twitter and stalk to do my mystery series for me? But yeah, just Google Twitter and then the person's name, and it usually comes up.
Yeah. That's it for Twitter. So we're going to move on to blogging as our last little section here. What are the best practices for starting an author blog, i.e. your own site, instead of on a free hosted platform?
I would say the best answer for that is how much experience you have working with a website. If you never have before, then I know WordPress is really easy to use, but you can also have it where WordPress hosts the site on their servers. And so literally it can be like, what is it, like yourauthorname.wordpress.com or something like that. So that's just, one way to do it. That's probably, if you're just starting, that's probably what I would do. Except that when I first did it, I had a little more knowledge behind me, so I hosted my own. Still do, actually. So, but I would go with WordPress first. Let them host it.
I'm going to argue against Jeff.
Bring it on.
You don't want somebody to own your blog. So every now and then, every couple months, there's a big fuss. Blogger deleted somebody's blog account that had been blogging for 10 years, and it's not like anybody doing porn or anything weird like that. It's just, you never know when something's going to happen. So
like certain keywords kicking in and then like flagging it.
Well, there was an artist just like 3 months ago that they deleted like 10 years worth of blog posts for no reason, that we know about. But it just, and plus, if you have everything on your website, it's easy for people to come find you online, and you don't have to link to some other site. And it's pretty inexpensive to get it set up. If you're not tech savvy, just have the 13-year-old kid next door put I use WordPress, but the software that you install on your own site. And you're going to need to get a site anyway if you're publishing books. So most hosting packages now have like a one-click WordPress install. So if you don't want to do it, the 13-year-old probably only charges $5 or $10 an hour. So, or even if you get a real tech person who charges more, it's only a couple hours worth of work. So, and there's all kinds of themes out there you can start with. I sadly, and this is pathetic, I'm still using the same theme that I got for free in 2010. And it's not that I want it, it's just that I haven't wanted to go through the work of getting someone to custom design a theme. And in my case, I have so many series of books that I'm just like, I don't even know which artwork I would use on it. It's half of them are sci-fi now, half are steampunk. I've done science fiction, romance. So anyway, I would definitely put it on your site is my argument.
Yeah.
I can give that. I'll go along with that.
I agree with WordPress, either hosting on WordPress. I agree that you should have, I'd talk about it a little bit later in one of the other questions, but it should be, I like the idea of it being the thing that you are under control of that will always be there. I've heard good things. You're listening to a podcast, so you've heard the name Squarespace. I've heard that they do reasonably well. I've never used it myself. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to get a website up pretty easily on your own. So generally speaking, if you're not savvy enough, then there are plenty of people who will do it for you. And if you are even a little bit savvy, I mean, in terms of just answering yes and no questions a couple of times, you can usually work your way through a tutorial or a setup script that will put you in. You'll have a basic thing, and you don't need to get too complicated with a blog. So, which brings us to our next question: what should you blog about, and what will actually sell books?
On my blog, I actually I usually will host contests. I'll actually I just engage with the fans on a little more personal level than actually with Facebook or whatnot. And usually I usually try to come up with contests where they'll have obviously something to do with the books. I had one year I did one month I did a contest where I had the fans like holding up a book cover, whether it was on a Kindle, whether it was on a phone, and then those who actually and then took the picture in like a really cool location, and then I would have put the names in the hat, have the dog choose a name, and they would win like a hat or like a I don't know, like a notebook or something with something merchandise with the like, picture of the book cover on it or something. But it just gets them talking about it. So and every time I do something like that, I do see an actual spike in like downloads from like the series starters. Because people are like, oh well, they're this dude's actually always having fun and hosting certain things. There, you got to give his books a try. I really like them, and it can help, and it's helped me. So I would have to answer yes. It will actually help sell books.
Yep, this is another place where you can use the affiliate links, and not just Amazon. I think you can sign up I finally signed up for Apple, and I believe Barnes & Noble might have something going in Kobo. So you can actually see if you're selling books as a result of what you're posting. With blogs, it does tend to take a while to kind of age and for you to start getting some search engine traffic. I don't really pay attention to the search engine optimization world anymore, but I think it's still true that the more links that are pointing to your site, kind of the more authority your site is deemed to have. So the more likely you're going to show up in the search engine results when people search for whatever you're writing about, basically. And as far as what you should blog about, I'm probably not a good example because I started out in the beginning. I remember my first goal was to blog 3 times a week, and I was kind of writing about my journey. I wrote early on, I did, this is my results from Goodreads advertising. I was kind of, here's my results from this that I tried. Here's how much I made this month. People are always interested in how much you make. I stopped doing that once I actually started making more than like a full-time income. And you don't have to, you can, but I just figured someday if I ever wanted anybody to back me on Patreon or something, I didn't want them to go back and find the post where they're like, oh yeah, you don't need any money, you're fine. So it's up to you. People, the more transparent you are on the blog, I think that can really appeal to readers and potential readers. I've had lots of people, even though I write about self-publishing, and I kind of have from the beginning. I've had lots of people buy the books. Uh, I think it's advice that you should never write for other writers because they're not going to buy your books. You want to write for your potential target audience. But some other writers out there are going to be fantasy fans or going to be science fiction fans, or they'll just mention you. When you blog about nonfiction stuff that's like useful and solves problems or answers questions for people, it's a lot easier to get people to link to your site. And you start, if you keep it up for a couple of years, like I said, you'll get more links coming in and you'll be more likely to appear just in Google searches. So it's totally up to you. There's a lot of writing blogs out there now, a lot of self-publishing blogs. When I got started, it was kind of like Joe Conrath, and Joe Conrath was blogging. So there weren't as many people that were blogging about what was working and what wasn't, and kind of the news and that type of thing. So these days, this last year, my blog has really fallen off. I'm so focused on writing new books now because that's what makes them, the most money, honestly, because that's what I make money from. And it tends to be the best form of marketing. It's just writing and publishing more books. And it's the most fun thing for me out of all the marketing stuff. It's just getting more books out there. I love the writing part. And some of the other, blogging's kind of fallen off. Even though you can sell some books from blogging, I find that writing and selling the next book is the best form of making, of selling books. But so I guess my long rambling answer is to write what you're passionate about. For me at the time, it was more self-publishing than it was. I actually tried to write about fantasy stuff. Like a year in or 2 years in or something, I said, I shouldn't be writing about all this stuff. I'm going to write about like book reviews and fantasy stuff. And I realized that I'm really not that checked into the fandom. I read maybe a couple books a month these days because I'm so busy writing my own stuff, or I'll listen to them. So unless I really happen to get sucked into a new series or something, that's about it, about 2 books a month right now. So it would be hard for me to be a successful book blogger about writing about reviews, but I know lots of authors who manage to still read a book every day, or, a book, at least a couple books a week. And that might be a good thing for them to write about if they're really excited about it. I would be careful with book review things, like only if you can say you liked the book. You don't want to start wars with other authors on your blog. And unless you delete the post, a blog post is going to still be there 5 years from now. So just something to think about. You don't want to make any enemies. But you can actually sell books, and that comes from traffic. The more people come into your blog, and Twitter is another one that kind of works well with the blogging, because a lot of times people will tweet a blog post. It works in that character set that you're allowed. So it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be like tomorrow. I wrote a blog post today and I sold 20 books from it. It's the kind of thing where I still get people finding posts that I wrote 5 years ago, and they become aware of me from that way. And maybe they see over in the sidebar, I put links to my free books. So maybe they check them out. So that's kind of how I've done it.
When I was most active on my blog, I would talk about my progress in the books. I would talk about my plans for the future. I agree that transparency is really nice, and it's along the same ways I was talking about with Twitter. Letting people know like what's going on and that you're a person and that this is the process. If it's interesting, then it'll get people interested and it'll get people involved, and then maybe at the very least, if they're invested in you, they might invest in your books. But I also use it. I used it for like feedback. I would ask questions a lot because there's a comment section. If you have the the nerve to leave your comment section active, because sometimes they can become unpleasant. Didn't happen to me. I'm happy to say. And also I would do little things like character interviews. For a while, I tried posting like weekly fiction, but it's not very well suited for that because you quickly start to push down the actual informational stuff, which is not a great idea unless you're doing things like pinning posts. But yeah, nowadays I mostly just sort of mirror the contents of my most recent newsletter and do the standard, things I announced, just so that it's a landing place for the most relevant current information. But we talked about this in the answer to this question, but I'll just go through to see if anyone has anything to add. How long does it take for a blog to start getting traffic from search engines?
When I started my blog, I got the first set of spam in about 2 weeks. So then from then on, I learned real quickly how to block said spammers from putting crap on there. So I would imagine, as long as you're blogging fairly constantly, the search engines would pick it up really quick.
I feel that it kind of depends on what you're blogging about and what people like. Yes, the spam bots will always find you. If you're blogging about self-publishing, let's say, which is a term that if you go Google it, you're going to find a lot of competition. Mostly all the people that sell self-publishing services are going to come up. And then sites that have been around for a long time. So it kind of depends on what you're blogging about. The more popular topics are going to have more people searching for them, but they're also going to have more posts and blogs already existing to cover that stuff out there. So a lot of times people will kind of target less popular things and just hope to get some of the traffic, whoever's willing to go to page 7 on Google and keep looking for the results they want. And I've definitely talked to people who have do the thing where you kind of cover the fandom in order to get your target reader. And if you blog about like what happened on Game of Thrones last night and you got a post ready to go and it's the first thing, and if your site's been up for a little while, you could get a lot of traffic from kind of blogging about news in the fandom or in the industry that you're in. But yeah, I would give it like a year though, just in general, to keep trying to get links, to keep putting up posts before you kind of hit a tipping point, and you'll see that your traffic increases quite a bit from the search engines.
Yeah, I have to agree. Months is optimistic, but a year or more is pretty realistic where you'll start seeing search engine traffic and stuff. I used to look at Google Analytics for this. I don't anymore because I don't really treat my website as a thing I want to drive people to. I just sort of treat it as a thing people will go to if they need to. But whether you get found or not, it depends on what you're writing about. To one of Lindsay's points, I used to do I was a contributor to a website called Brain Lazy, which was mostly gaming blog. And one of our contributors, when the game Diablo came out, he did a post on where is the identification button, because it was crucial to a previous form of Diablo and was not immediately obvious in the newest version. And because he was the first person to do so simple a post on so tiny a thing, we're talking literally 10,000 hits over the course of the next few days. It just got picked up by the search engine and started directing people. So if you're quick and you're established, sometimes you can get a really big punch from search engines. But mostly I would say, keep at it and be consistent. And that's where we are with blogs. So last question, although I have some stuff in the chat here, which I have to read once I pass this off. Is blogging really worth the time?
Had to unmute myself there. Well, I've had it both ways where I've been wondering as I'm like writing stuff, and yes, you are interacting with the fans and readers and anyone else that actually takes the time to look you up. Is it worth it? I mean, to me that question is answered by the one we just had a little bit ago, where what should you blog about and will it actually sell books? Well, it can. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount that's going to add to your income, but it can. So I mean, it all depends if you like doing it, if you like interacting with your fans and readers. I mean, I personally do. I think it's a good idea to keep in touch with everybody. It makes you more personable and more approachable, and that has a tendency to be word of mouth spread to other people. Say, yeah, this person's a really nice guy. You got to check out his books. I really enjoy him, and so I mean, I would say it's worth it. I mean, like I say, it's not exactly the most profitable by doing it, but you can.
I would say one nice thing about blogging as opposed to Twitter and Facebook and some of the other social media sites is that your stuff is kind of there forever. Tweets, they go off the front page really quickly. They go off people's feeds really quickly. Like I was saying, I still get Google traffic from blog posts that I wrote 5 years ago. And so there's a permanence about it that can, the more posts you have up, the more chances are people will stumble on your blog. And then if your blog is interesting enough, if it's the way you write is, interesting, maybe people will check out your books if they like your style. So I would say it's worth it, especially for me in the beginning. I was not yet at the point where I could write a book in a month or 2 months. So it was something else to kind of take a break from writing the fiction. Coughing alert.
I'll step in for a minute while she's taking care of business. What I gotta say is, blogging, I think we don't talk about this a lot on the show because this show is the science fiction and fantasy marketing podcast, but blogging is actually really, really worth your time if you're doing nonfiction. If you're doing nonfiction, like blogging might be one of your biggest focuses because it's a place where you can illustrate your expertise. So yeah, blogging is super useful for that. For other stuff, I think having a blog is crucial. I don't think that it's necessarily as useful as the other places.
Yeah, as I was trying to say, it is at the, you don't need to blog like 3 times a week like I did, unless you want to try to do it as a way to get some attention. Maybe it'll work. It does go well with Twitter, like I was saying, but just having a place where you can put your first chapter of your new release. Like even if you don't want to blog about anything else, at a minimum, the occasional announcement about what you're working on, and people can follow your blogs same way they can follow you on Twitter and Facebook. And I will say also about the blog, you can put it on Goodreads on your author profile. You can have it syndicated there, and I'll get comments on Goodreads. I'm like, who reads my blog on Goodreads? But every now and then people are commenting and interacting there. And also on your Amazon author page, you can put your blog feed in. So it's something you can have out there, and people are checking you out on Amazon. They're like, oh, what's this interesting blog about? I want to go find out about George R.R. Martin's last episode. Well, maybe it'll get them to your blog, even if it's not for your books. But yeah, so there are places you can syndicate your blog that people actually will look and find you. So I think it's worth having one, at least for some minimal stuff, even if you're not super excited about doing blog posts.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And like we were saying, it's worth having one just because it's 100% in your control if you choose to do it that way. So no matter what, if Twitter becomes passe and Snapchat becomes passe and all of the other ones just fade out and that you have to start anew with a whole brand new platform, your blog will still be there. So it's handy to have, it's as handy to have as a business card. And we have a question that is in the chat via Twitter. So another thing Twitter is good for. Cool topic. This is from Dale Ivan Smith. Cool topic. In case you guys don't talk about this, which of the three, that would be Twitter, blogging, and Facebook, is most effective for a new author? And I guess I'll go first on this one because I just asked the question. I think that Facebook is probably the most effective for a new author. If you're going to only do one, I would recommend Facebook.
I would agree. Facebook. Naturally, since I don't have experience with Twitter, but if you're just getting started and you want to reach a bunch of fans, there's a lot of. I still think more people are using Facebook than Twitter, but I could be wrong on that.
I think Facebook is the biggest. I think Twitter's a little easier when you're a nobody to kind of butt into conversations and things. That's something you can do on Twitter more than maybe Facebook. I would start a blog out of the three we've talked about today. If you don't want to, because for what Joe just said, Facebook could go away. I mean, who uses MySpace now, right? But 10 years ago, MySpace was the place where bands had their page and authors had their books. And, but your blog, your website, that's going to be forever. So every piece of content you put up on your site is, like I said, a way people can stumble across you from the search engine searches. And if you start there, then you have some things to tweet about too. You're like, oh, look, my free chapter, or post on Facebook. Here it is. Here's my free book. You can check it out on my site.
It's true. It's actually an excellent point. And that concludes our questions for this evening. So now on to the closing statements. Lindsay, how about you?
Are we supposed to have closing statements?
Sure, why not?
My only one is that, like I said, this is episode 102. I'll put the show notes up there, and the site that I will try to find the if then. I've never heard of that site, even though you told us that it is used to update the sci-fi marketing page. But I'll put a link to that. So come on by, guys. Leave a comment if anything was interesting or if you want to argue with us. Not about politics, though. We're not into that stuff. Not publicly, anyway. So thanks for listening.
If you want to talk about politics, you caught Lindsay's, she said her email address in there. So her email address is...
Oh yeah, don't forget me, send me an email if you want to write in my world. We are not talking about politics in it, but yeah, come make some money, write in my world. That would be fun. I would love to have you, and I send you lots more information about it if you actually email me. Thanks.
Yep, and I don't have anything besides what I said in the opening, so I blabbered as the host of this. So I'll just say, thanks for coming, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
All right, you guys take it easy. Thanks for listening / watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.